Dear subscribers, you're welcome to the part 2 of our story, Love. Please relax, enjoy, and listen. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. And remember to leave a comment below. Tell us what you like about our story. Thank you. Part 2, Love and Library. 1 year later, as the heir to the throne, Ken was sent to the boarding school of kings, where he would be trained on how to rule a kingdom. He spent 8 years there, gaining knowledge and wisdom to prepare him for his role as a leader. Upon his return, he was rooted in elitism, holding on to the belief that there was a huge gap between the commoners and the royals. His point of view bothered his brother Abel, who felt he was brainwashed. Your father was getting weak as the days went by, and his health deteriorated. Ken was given some authority to make some decisions in the kingdom. Ken changed the locks of the library and the studio to a code-activated system. Abel was mad when he tried accessing the library and was told that only Ken knew the code to the library. He walked down in anger to his brother. "Why did you change the lock to the library?" asked Abel, confronting Ken. "Brother, the library holds the secrets to our kingdom. We have to be careful so that our enemies would not gain access through the commoners. You know that the commoners are stupid and do not have a mind of their own," replied Ken. "Ken, what happened to you in that school? I knew that you always had this air of arrogance of the royals, but ever since you returned from that school, your arrogance has tripled," Abel said, feeling pity for his brother. "Abel, I don't expect you to understand, because you're more concerned about getting people to love you," retorted Ken. "I want to follow in the footsteps of our father. Our kingdom was formidable under his rule." "The footsteps of our father, you say?" mocked Abel. "Our father never spent time with us. He didn't even know us as children. He was more concerned about the affairs of the kingdom than his family. What do you think was responsible for our mother's death? She died of loneliness and depression," Abel responded sadly. "Enough of this discussion, Abel. I have duties to attend to," Ken said, leaving Abel's presence, not wanting to be reminded of the death of his mother. He remembered everything like yesterday, how his mother cried herself to sleep every night before her death. Deep down, Ken had compassion, but he did not want to be perceived as weak. He mistook kindness for weakness. He saw how his mother's kindness led to her untimely death. He said to himself, "I refuse to be weak and to be a victim." He muttered under his breath. Regardless of Abel and Ken's differences, they were fond of each other. One day, Ken was bored in the palace and took a stroll with 2 of his guards around the kingdom. He was surprised to see a new library in town named Books for All. Out of curiosity, he visited the library. Upon arriving there, he saw someone he hadn't seen in years, Rose. He was delighted to see her. All the sparks that he thought were gone flooded in. He remembered how he used to look forward to talking with her at the palace. He chided himself, saying, "She's just a commoner. You have been with women with more class." This could not help the tight knot he felt in his stomach. Rose was surprised to see Prince Ken. She knew he was back, but never expected him to visit his library. "How did you know I was here, Your Highness?" He scoffed, trying to hide his attraction. "Do you think that I would waste my precious time looking for a commoner, Rose?" Rose was offended by his statement, and she replied rudely, "It is interesting that you still remember the name of a commoner like me. Your Highness, please permit me to get you some royal hair, because the air in this library has been polluted by the commoners." The guards tried stepping in to stop Rose from speaking to the prince rudely. Prince Ken stopped them and warded them off. "You have always been sassy and outspoken," Ken replied, amused by the way Rose pouted her lips. The guards were surprised to see a smile escape from the prince's lips. The prince never smiled, and they couldn't understand why he had accepted Rose, speaking to him so rudely. "I am afraid, Your Highness, I do not have books for you in the library. My books are only for the commoners," Rose responded. "That is surprising, considering that your library is called Books for All. Perhaps you should consider renaming it." "What type of books do you have here?" he asked Rose. "We don't have the secrets that can conquer a kingdom, if that's your fear, Your Highness," Rose responded. "I don't fear anything, my dear Rose," Ken said teasingly. Rose continued, unfazed by the prince's words. "I've had a license to open a library that deals with books on literature, arts, and business. You will find books on African, European, and American literature." "Where is Grace, your mother?" "I haven't seen her at the palace since I returned," Ken said, ignoring her last statement and changing the subject. "My mother passed away. She had liver cancer." "Oh." "Accept my condolences," Ken said, moving closer to Rose. He was almost tempted to strip Rose into his embrace to console her and take away the pain he saw in her eyes. However, he held back, not giving off any emotions. They chatted for several hours just like the old times, discussing life in general before the prince left for the palace. The prince would always look for an excuse to visit Rose. He loved the company. Rose, on the other hand, was attracted to the prince but kept denying it to herself, telling herself that she was only fond of him because of their past friendship. Two years later, Heber brought Abigail, the daughter of the palace tailor, and introduced her to his father as the woman he wanted to marry. This was after he realized that Rose did not feel the same way about him. He noticed the close bond between Ken and Rose, even though Ken kept denying it whenever he raised the topic. The king was disappointed in Heber's choice of a partner. "This is bad omen," roared the king. "I tried to stop you from mingling with the commoners, but to no avail. Father, Abigail is the woman that I love and I want to spend my life with," Heber insisted. "What happened to the princesses from the neighboring kingdoms? Don't you know that the marriage is used to tighten the ties between kingdoms?" The king asked Heber, "Father, I refuse to sacrifice my happiness at the altar of the kingdom. I saw how you made my mother miserable because you had no single love for her. I refuse to be in a hopeless and lonely marriage," Heber responded stubbornly. "Enough!" King Amos thundered with bloodshot eyes. "Brother, stop it," Ken stepping in, having been listening to their conversation. "Father, please get some rest," he said. "No, Heber must do the right thing." King Amos fired at Heber. Ken was torn between his father and brother. However, as an heir to the throne, he knew that the kingdom must be preserved. He faced Heber. "Heber, it is a taboo for royals to mix in marriage with commoners. When this happened in past generations, it led to famine and plague in the kingdom," Ken told Heber. As he was talking, he remembered his love for Rose. His love and conversations with Rose started bringing out the soft side of Ken, and he refused to acknowledge it. And he continued speaking. Abel, to preserve our kingdom, we must follow traditions. Tell him, replied the king. Traditions be damned. You mean traditions that were created by men who lacked compassion, like you and father? Abel replied. Abel, stop it. The matters of the kingdom come first, don't you know that? Think of our father's health. You need to rethink your decision. It will affect the kingdom and our family. There is no going back, Ken. Abigail is with my child. What? The king asked in shock. Ken, this is your first test as a future king. Abel must be punished. I give you the authority to punish him according to the laws of this kingdom, said the king. Father, please don't make me do this. You both are the only family that I have. As a future king, Ken, you must learn to make tough decisions and you must not be weak. Ken looked at Abel and then his father and looked away. With pain in his heart, he pronounced Abel's punishment. By the power vested in me, I hereby banish you and Abigail from this kingdom. You must leave and never return to the Palm Kingdom. Abel took his bride and left. This was the oddest decision Canaan ever made in his life. However, he was afraid that his inability to make the decision might lead to their father's death. He also knew that a king must be ready to make tough decisions so that he won't be perceived as weak. He left for his inner chambers after the pronouncement. He felt sorry for his brother, but the needs of the kingdom came first. As days went by, Ken felt lonelier in the absence of Abel. His visits to Rose's library increased as he found solace in their conversations. He visited her without the guards. During one of their discussions, Rose brought up Abel's banishment. I must express my deep concern about the decision to banish Abel, simply because a commoner is with his child? Love knows no boundaries or status, said Rose, thinking of what the future had for her and the prince. She was miserable about her feelings for the prince. Ken responded, I understand your compassion, Rose, but you must see the bigger picture. The stability and reputation of the kingdom are paramount. We cannot have our royal bloodline diluted by marriages to commoners, said Ken. However, his belief in the traditions of the kingdom was waning as he realized that the heart wants what the heart wants. But as a future king, he could not acknowledge those feelings. But love and happiness are important too, Your Highness. By banishing the younger prince, the kingdom has denied him his rights to pursue his own happiness, Rose insisted. The needs of the kingdom must always come first. You cannot afford to risk unrest or instability by allowing such unions. It sets a dangerous precedent. Marriages between royals and commoners only lead to complications and tensions. We must preserve our traditions and heritage, Ken said. But deep in his heart, he was carrying the burden of guilt. Rose, undeterred by the prince's words, continued, I fear that in prioritizing tradition over love, the kingdom is sowing the seeds of discontent and division. You and the king made a terrible decision. Abel was a gentle prince, whose support for the commoners helped in bearing the brunt of some of the harshest policies from the palace. Enough, Rose! Do you think that banishing my brother was easy for me? Why do you have to rub it in? I come here to ease my pain because I find comfort in our conversations, fired Ken to Rose. If my bloodline is not good enough for marriage, why should it be good enough for providing comfort? Asked Rose, irritated. They both argued back and forth, and Ken stomped out of the library in anger. For the next 2 months, Ken did not show up at the library. He knew that Rose was right. There was really no difference between the commoners and the royals. They breathed the same air and need the same things in life to survive. He missed his brother and his smile. For the first time, he thought of his mother. She was such a gentle soul like Abel. She taught them that empathy was the essence of every being. He had refused those teachings because he considered them the words of a weak. Looking back now, he realized that his mother was a stronger one compared to his father, who allows his emotions to becloud him every time. He yearned to see Rose again. He could paint every feature of her face in her absence. He couldn't deny it any longer. He was in love with her. Ken, in his thoughts, whispered to himself, Unfortunately, I can't act on my feelings. I would just be a hypocrite if I do. What will my brother think of me? I must stop visiting Rose to kill this feeling. Prince Ken got himself very busy at the palace and avoided Rose's library to stop himself from thinking about her. Weeks later, word got to the king that Rose stopped the library with books on history and war, which were not allowed. The king ordered that Rose be brought to the palace. Ken was unaware of what was happening. He only returned to the palace today after being away for official duties in other parts of the kingdom. He was surprised to see Rose kneeling in front of the king. I heard that you have ordered to your library books that only the palace library should have access to, the king said angrily to Rose. Your Highness, the people should be well informed about their past. Books on history are as important as books on art and literature. It is not in your place to decide what is good for my people. You have broken the law, and now your library must be shut down. Your Highness, what are you afraid of? Do you fear that the people will get knowledgeable and take over your kingdom? Rose inquired. Nobody can take over my kingdom. Watch your tongue, young maiden. You must close that pit you call it library, the king thundered in anger. If it is a pit, Your Highness, why are you so bothered about it? Rose responded. How dare you? The king shouted. Father, Ken stepped in. Relax, it is okay. I have visited that library and she has no book that would pose a threat to the kingdom. Besides, that library keeps our teenagers busy and keep them away from crime. Okay, that is good, but this young maiden must be taught a lesson. She must sleep in the dungeon for a week That would teach her how to control her tongue, King Amos said. The king instructed the guard to take Rose to the palace dungeon and left. Ken instructed the guards to feed Rose with the best food in the dungeon and provide a change of clothes. One night, Prince Ken snuck into the dungeon to see Rose. He brought her a blanket and books for her comfort. At first, they felt awkward staring at each other because of how they parted ways the last time. I apologize for the things I said to you at the library, Rose said, breaking the silence. I said awful things too, Ken said, not knowing how to apologize. Is that a royal way of saying sorry? Rose chuckled. What I am trying to say is Prince Ken carried on, unable to say sorry. Rose smiled understandably. Don't worry, Your Royal Highness, we'll work on that, she smiled. I have missed you, Rose. I've missed you too, Prince Ken. That is the first time that I would hear you call my name. To be honest, I love the way you call it. They both smiled and discussed for several hours. The guard was not too surprised to find Prince Ken when he brought her food. He saw how Prince Ken behaved towards Rose the other day at the library. For the 1 week Rose spent in the dungeon, Prince Ken was there for her, and Rose enjoyed her stay. They read books together. They had conversations about leadership, justice, and empathy, and the bond between them grew stronger. They decided not to address the elephant in the room, the gap between the commoners and the royals. Thank you, dear subscribers. You have come to the end of part 2. Please watch out for part 3, and I hope you had a nice time listening today. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!